underbust corset. But just before we head back to this video, I don't want to ignore the fact that we're on 1K subscribers, guys. Thank you for the love and the support. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. But don't forget to like, share, comment, and of course subscribe if you haven't, and follow me on my Instagram handle at @thisemiClan. Without further ado, let's just head right into this tutorial. Here are the list of things we're going to be using for this tutorial: our denim, our underbust wire in bust 34, our pins, of course, the boning, our chalk. This is our eyelet machine. I'm going to show you what we'll use that for, and of course our scissors. Forward, we have the measurement of our shoulder to our underbust line. We have our bust line, we have our true bust line, and our chest. So once all this is in place, the link to this pattern is a Natalie Bray pattern, will be in the description box below. So you could achieve this with basically any pattern. So you're able to locate and know all your lines. By 0.5 inches there, and I'm just tracing that down to the underbust line, and the measurement I'm using there is 7 inches, which is going to be the cup width. So I'm just blending that down to the underbust line. So you could achieve this with basically any pattern, as long as you know your bust point, your underbust point also. So I'm going down by 4 inches over there, and I'm basically just going to blend that line. Yeah, blend it with the marker because I'm using the pencil and it's really not clear. So I just blend that out over there also. Next up, we're going to divide our panels. Yeah, these panels, we're going to be inserting a boning to each of these panels. And once that is done, I'm just basically going to trace out with a marker. So I'm using this marker to know how and where I'm going to cut through with my scissors. Now over there, I'm going in at the top at 1 inch, and at the bottom I went in by 1.25. And basically I'm just going to use my ruler to, join the lines. So I'm going in with my marker to shade that out. Over there, we're also going to be getting the midpoint and also drawing a line. So I'm going to label our parts CF1, CF2, CF3. I'm also going to be doing the same thing to the back: CB1, CB2, and CB3. You need to label your parts in order so you don't mix up. Maybe you're going to put the front to the back or the back to the front. I'm just going to cut that out. I'm also going in to label up and down, so you don't put where you're supposed to put at the top, at the bottom, because as soon as you start sewing, everything looks the same. Everything, to be honest. So I'm cutting that out, and I'm also going to do the same thing for the front. So basically, if you guys notice, I also cut out, that stuff that looked like brackets. It's the that, and we are not going to be needing it, so we're cutting it off. So once you have all your pieces in place, we do not need the upper part of the pattern. We're moving forward to our fabric. The fabric I got is a denim fabric. It's a non-stretchy denim fabric, a bit thick, and you do not need up to like 1 yard. Maybe you do need 1 yard, because if you want to lining it, both front and back, which you're going to be seeing in this video, you might need up to 1 yard. So I'm putting them in place, our pattern piece in place. So I folded this on bias. Folding it on bias gave your fabric a little stretch, especially to non-stretchy fabric. So basically, the allowance we're going to be inserting at the side is 0.625 inches, which will enable us also sew at 0.5 and insert our boning. For the underbust, where we're going to insert our underbust, we're going to be inserting a 0.5 inches allowance, and for the bottom width, we're going to be inserting a 0.5 inches allowance. Once all that is done, we're just going to cut it out with our scissors. So after cutting this piece, put it in mind you're also going to have to cut the same piece, which is going to be your lining or your inner fabric, which I ended up doing the same denim. So I did denim but for the inside and the outside. Moving forward, I went in to repeat the same step to cut the remaining two pieces, and just basically do the same thing. At the side, the allowance is 0.625. At the bottom, the allowance is 0.5. And I'm just tracing that with my chalk. And basically, once you're done cutting, remember for each panel or each piece you're going to have 4 pieces. So for each panel you're having 4 pieces of that particular panel, which is like 2 pieces are going to be for the lining and the other 2 pieces for the actual body of the dress. Now I'm going over to mark out each of my piece with a pencil, which wasn't clear enough, so I used my chalk. So you need to label each of your panels. Once that is done, you're going to pin the whole thing in place. From your front to your back, you're pinning everything to be a straight line just before you start sewing. It's very, very essential, because at the end of the day, if you do not pin them in place, you might end up putting what is supposed to be at the back to the front, and you also need to label your parts. So once we're done with all the pinning, we're moving over to sew. So we're sewing at exactly 0.625 inches. So we're going to repeat the whole process. 0.625, which was our allowance we added. Just to check, you see it's already looking, in place. And we're just going to continue stitching. You're going to stitch at 0.625 on both the fabric, the main fabric, and whatever you're going to use for the lining. You're still going to sew on that same 0.625. So now moving forward, we're going to lay that down like so, and sew on 0.5 inches. So we're laying it flat on one side and sewing on 0.5. So here's what it looks like. So we have two pieces. I did not, repeat the same process on the lining just because I felt it wasn't necessary. Now we're going over to attach our front and our back, which is our fabric and our lining. So we're sewing on our allowance, which is 0.5. So I started off with sewing for the underbust, like sewing where the underbust is, like the missing cup. Now we're just going to sew and also extend our sewing to the back. So basically I'm going in with my scissors to cut out any excess thread because denim frays a lot and it's pretty hard to sew. So once that is done, I'm just basically going to sew on 0.25 inches. So note guys, at the edge you're going to leave out just about 0.25 inches where you will be able to insert your boning. I didn't leave out, so I was actually taking out, trying to open up that space which I closed. So you're sewing on 0.25. It allows you to insert your underbust wire. See? Yep, and our corset is already looking in place. So I'm going to repeat the same step for the other side. you sew on 0.25. So most of the measurements I have been calling out are in inches. So when I say 0.25, I mean 0.25 inches. Insert our underbust wire. Once we're done, you should have something that looks like this. I don't know if you guys can see this, but come on, everything is already looking nice and pink. That was the back and this is the front. Now we're moving over to inserting our boning. We cut out each piece and measure it. So you're going to leave out 1 inch. So whatever measurement you have on your fabric for the length, you're going to take out 1 inch. So this our boning is not a sew-on boning because there are different type of boning. So basically I'm just going to scrape yeah, I'm using my floor to like scrape out that piece. And if you scrape it out, this is what it looks like. The edge is nicely curved and it's not sharp because the raw edge of the initial boning is pretty sharp. I tried to use a sandpaper to like scrape it, but it didn't work, so I had to, look for other devices, which I ended up using my floor. So I'm going to insert the boning at the center front. I forgot to tell you guys, we sewed on both sides open. So I have 2 sewing at the center front and I inserted 2 bonings only on the center front, which is the midpoint. And I'm just going to insert my boning like so, pretty easy. Now after doing that, I just close each side. So the right side of the back and the right side of the front facing each other. It can be very trickish using this method, or you could just finish the bottom using a bias, but I didn't want to use a bias, so I'm using this method. Now this is where you're going to see a little bit of challenge, turning this over with a boning inside. But at the end of the day, we were still able to turn it over, but a little bit hard. So if you don't want to go through this stress, I'm going to advise you to use a bias to turn this, like turn it with a bias at the bottom. So here's what it looks like, the back, and this is the back and this is the front. We're going to give it a good press. Here is our eyelet machine and it comes with the eyelets, and I'm just going to cut that out. It also has a cutter, and doing a test run to see how well it works. And I'm just going to press that down. And here's what it looks like. It came out nice. And I'm just going to use the cutter again. And then insert our eyelet and use the machine. This is just basically a test run just before I go into details with my actual dress. So just before that, I had seam up this side. Like I folded it in by 0.5 and stitch. Now I'm going in at the top line. I went in by 0.5 inches, and for the rest I went in by 1 inches, which I ended up using about 6 eyelets. Now, there's one sad news. After I made that video, my eyelet machine fell to the ground, and the cutter part, like where I actually cut the fabric, got broken. So now I have to use a scissors to improvise to achieve the same method. So only where cuts the fabric damaged in the cutter when it fell down, but the eyelet machine still works. I don't know if that makes any sense. So the eyelet machine works, but the cutter part of the eyelet machine, it doesn't work anymore. So I had to use my scissors to improvise, because a girl gotta do what a girl gotta do. So I did that. If you notice, I had already done one part, and I did that off cam, and I'm just basically showing you guys the whole process of using my scissors to do this. So make the hole, insert your eyelets, and press that down. Repeat the same step. So as you guys can see, we're almost done with this corset. So once we're done with that, it should look something like this. And moving forward, we're going over to our denim. We're cutting a long strip of about 1 inches and using a 12mm bias tape binder. So I use the bias tape binder behind, which enabled me to get that long strip, you can see. So I'm testing it out to see if it fits to my corset, because the eyelet is pretty small. The hole in the eyelet is pretty small, so you really need to get or achieve a thin rope. So basically I'm just going to sew and sew and sew that long strip out. Once we're done with all of that, we're going to go in with a lighter to smoothen out the rough edge, and basically just passing our rope just so we have an idea of what it's going to look like on our body. So guys, we've gotten to the end of this video, and I just want to say thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial.